Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets above the stinging air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this remembrance ceremony for 9/11. 21 years, Mexican Iron Man. What do you think?
I can't believe it's been that long.
I know, it's absolutely shocking to me.
It is absolutely shocking that it has been that long.
21 years. Jeez.
How
Oh.
quickly the nation forgets.
I know. Well, there were quite a few Twitter posts out there going never forget and all that. So let me give a quick shout out to the chat. Jedi Bill, thank you for joining us. Mary's Game Room is backstage. She's the one who's producing the show today. Thank you, Mary. And Nina Green, thank you for showing support to the channel. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Special guest, Mexican Iron Man. So, what I'd like to do today is talk about, where were you that day? Because that is often the question. Now, we've got an entire generation of people who weren't even born then and are adults. They're serving as firefighters, as military, as police officers, and running the daily jobs and doing work and things out in the world. They weren't even born on that day. So it's like, I never thought I would become old enough to be the guy going, well, I remember when I was...
Well, how old are you? I mean, like do you remember when like when TV was invented? And
I'm not quite that old,
I mean, at this point, it's not only was I old enough to be and experience and remember 9/11, but I mean, at this point, I'm like, well, let's see. I remember the internet getting created.
Oh, I remember when cable was new.
Right, when that was like a cool thing.
Yeah. Oh,
are you old enough? Did you ever go up on a roof and install an antenna on a roof for broadcast TV?
Oh no, but a friend of mine. Oh yeah, we had Ariel. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and you don't mean the Little Mermaid either. You mean like
right. Yeah, we got all 3 channels plus the UHF channels.
Oh yeah, the good old UHF channels. One where you like take the knob and you like turn it halfway. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about remembering. But yes, we are old enough to say to where were you when? And man, what a day.
It was a crazy day. Let's see. I can just start on the day, but I'd like to backtrack a few years. I joined the Army in 1995. Okay, so I had served 5 years in the Army. I left the service in November of 2000. So 5 years complete in total. I was still on inactive reserve, which is a whole different thing that I would have to go into to explain to a lot of people. So I was on inactive reserve. So I was basically just a civilian waiting for my 3 years to expire so I could be a complete civilian. I didn't have to go to drills. I didn't have to stay in shape or anything like that. So I was working a job here, job there. And then my dad was sick and he was in a nursing home. So I moved back to Los Angeles, which I swore I never would.
Yo,
I did.
Gotta go.
Los Angeles.
Bye. Kidding.
And so there I was, working at LAX, and I was working at a fixed base operation. That's where the private jets fly in. So I was refueling like Lear jets and things like that on a little 2.5 acre ramp. And the night before, well, I guess it was the day of, because I didn't get home till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, I was refueling the fuel truck for the airfield, and ended up this is complicated. I had my own apartment, but I was staying with my grandfather because my uncle and aunt went on vacation. And so I was staying with my grandfather, and he came into the bedroom in the morning and he said, "DJ, wake up, we're under attack." I said, "What are you talking about, Grandpa?" So I got up out of bed and I stumbled into the living room in my underwear, and I looked at the TV and I went, "Holy crap!" And I went and put pants on and then sat in front of the TV for the rest of the day.
So this must have been about 5, 6 in the morning, California, LA time.
6, I think. Yeah. Right about 6 o'clock in the morning. Yep. So I'd only gotten a few hours of sleep the night before, and then he woke me up and I went, "What?" But just a couple days later, yep, sure enough, I went to the recruiter and I said, "I don't care what rank you give me, and I don't care what MOS I have to serve under. Just put me back in the Army now."
Well, let's back up. But can we talk about experiencing that day, that morning before you re-enlisted? Like what emotions and what you were seeing and TV? Because I didn't get a chance to experience the TV experience because I was there. So what was it like?
Well,
being an American, a patriotic American, and
my grandfather had woke me up after the first plane hit the North Tower was first, I believe. And so I saw the replays of that several times, and then like 6 minutes later, the second plane hit the South Tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that live because they had cut to it, and I saw that live, and I went, oh my God, that is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was sitting there just with my jaw on the floor going, what in the world? And, the first one, I was like, wow, that is a horrible accident. I hope everybody gets out. And then the second one hit, and I was like, that is no accident. Son of a bitch. Oh, God. And then 15 minutes later, the Pentagon was hit. Oh, shit. What's going on? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, and I was completely helpless. I mean, I was on the completely other end of the country. I was on the West Coast. Like, what am I going to do? What can I do? There's nothing I can do. We're in trouble. What are we going to do? Man, that's the mindset. That was my head was spinning the entire day. Just, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What are we going to do? Making telephone calls,
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, I went to work, and I mean, when they say all the planes were grounded, all of the planes were grounded, every single plane. And we had a 2.5 acre ramp. So you would have a Cessna parked in the corner with a Learjet parked on top of that, and then a Citation 5 on top of that, and then a Gulfstream 5 on top of that. And we'd have a 737 parked over there in that corner with a bunch of littler planes parked underneath it. I mean, it was a nightmare. And that's just our 2.5 acre ramp. I mean, you're talking, we had American Airlines right next to us that had all of their planes parked on their ramp. I mean, the runways themselves had planes parked up and down the runways. It was chaotic. It was absolute chaos at LAX. Whew, boy.
It must have been like this massive backup of a freeway, but with planes. I mean, that the scale of that that alone must have been epic to watch.
That's mind-boggling.
I mean, that has got to be epic, because it's like almost like Armageddon, D-Day. You know, the world stops, right? Because all these planes are stacked.
Well, when we had on a regular operational day, we had the tracker that would track all the airplanes that are in the air. And that tracker would tell us how many planes are in the air at any given time. Well, I never really paid attention to the big number, right? But I think, let's see, I was working late night one night and walked in, 50,000 planes were in the air. And we were only tracking 6 of them because those are the ones we needed to track. There were like 50,000 planes in the air. On September 11th and 12th, they were all on some airport somewhere.
Wow.
It's like, can you imagine the amount of steel that was just sitting on the runways? Oh, absolutely unbelievable.
So let's lead up to those 2 days later. You were at the station telling them to sign you back up. It was Army, right? Of course, Army.
Yeah, Army.
So, what was your decision-making process and your emotional process that led you there?
On September 11th, my uncle and aunt came back from their vacation. I mean, they were just in Northern California, but that's still a long drive. But I had made up my mind that day that I was going back into the military. I knew I was. It wasn't a surprise to my family in any way. So when my uncle got home, I had a conversation with him in the kitchen, and he is a Vietnam veteran. And so he looked me dead in the eye and he said, "You're doing well here, and you've got your own place. You've got a good job. Are you sure?" Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So I hope you know what you're doing. I said, well, it's not the first time I've ever been deployed overseas.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, all 4 of my deployments, although they were combat deployments, I've never fired my rifle at anyone, and I've never been shot at. So, I mean, my entire career was all in logistics.
Right, but I think even I've talked to a lot of logistics guys over the years, and when they were called to serve, especially someone like you, where you developed these skill set, you knew that you're going to have value and be able to, I mean, logistics is 80% of the game, anyways.
That is true. Yeah,
and it's under celebrated and lesser known. But I know, because I've had a lot of guys that have served and stuff. And I mean, if you don't have good logistics, you're toast. And something like you, where you're going from fueling planes, and one day in the private sector, you're, going to go fuel, combat plane. I mean, or whatever, whatever your tasks were. But I'm just saying logistics is just 80-90%. I can instantly see why you were like, I've got to go. But, as a patriot, and from a skill set standpoint, you're like, I already know how to do something they're going to need. Let's go. Right.
The ratio at the time for boots on ground, combat troops was 10% and support troops were 90%. But you have to work into that 90%, air defense artillery, and artillery support and things like that. So they are combat troops. They're just not on the front lines. So the 10% are the armor who do the tanks and the Bradleys and the pew pew shoot 'em ups. And then 80%, you're right, about 80% is paperwork. The Army, the Navy says that the Navy floats on a sea of paperwork, which is true. The Army marches on a roadway paved with paperwork. So same thing.
So, and then so your family was just like, they got it instantly that, you got to go and stuff.
Yeah, a couple of them knew before I even called.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I called them and they said, okay, when are you going to the recruiter? So I haven't even told you.
You're like, we got to walk through my trauma and my decision-making tree. Right?
At least let me tell how hard the decision was.
Right. At least let me cover the anguish. Right? They're like, okay, you have your own ride, right? Okay, all right. All right.
Yeah. Do I need to do anything? No. So what? That night is when I proposed to my ex-wife.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Holy moly! That Monday night?
Yeah. I told her I'm going back in the Army, and she said, "Oh, you are?" And I said, "Yeah. Do you want to go with me?"
What? No, you didn't.
I did.
What? Why would you do that? Wait, what?
She said, "You have to ask my dad." And I said, "No problem."
Holy bananas. And then what did you do?
Well, I had to take her dad out to lunch, didn't I?
Yeah.
He's a retired major from the Army.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, he's the one who let's see, he's the one. Oh, he gave her away. He actually had to go buy a new uniform because he had gained about 50 pounds since he retired. So he went and bought a brand new uniform.
Well, none of us are spring chickens. Don't judge Mexican Iron Man yet.
Hey, don't judge me either.
Wow.
I gained about 100 pounds after I left the service. So
wow. So you got engaged. He said, wow, holy moly. Jeez.
2001 was a 2001 was a pretty traumatic year for me. I have to say that.
Had that not happened, you might not have proposed, and you wouldn't have gone back to the Army.
True. I probably have continued working at LAX. Probably would have played the field, not had a girlfriend, that kind of thing for a few years, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, Mexican Iron Man is familiar with that lifestyle.
That was a pretty traumatic year, though. I mean, the whole reason I moved back to LA because my dad was sick in a nursing home. So, and as a matter of fact, I know this is off topic a little bit, but he died Christmas Day of 2001.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
wow.
Like I said, 2001 was a pretty traumatic year. But
wow.
Oh, no, she wasn't my ex-wife at the time. She became my wife. I was 22 and she was 20.
Oh, to be youthful again.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was 22, right? 18 plus 5, 23. Man, I'm not good at math. It's a good thing I'm not the accountant on the panel.
All right, so take your age and must subtract 21. There you go.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, I was 24. I mean, she was 22. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, neither one of us had been married. I say I proposed to my ex-wife because she's currently my ex-wife.
Right.
Egads.
Egads. Oh my God, I haven't met anyone else that says that besides me and you.
I've been saying it for years.
I say that all the time. I've never heard anyone else say that before. That's so funny.
Go in the jackyard and back yourself off.
Egads.
I grew up with a bunch of Okies. I got all kinds of weird sayings like that.
Wow. So 9/11 completely changed the course of your life, as it did for many, many people.
Oh, many people. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely did me. I mean, I was done with the Army. I'd spent 3 years as a fueler, chasing Bradleys, chasing Abrams, and I spent 2 years with the 1st Cav Division Band. I said, I've done everything in this life. I've been everywhere and I've done everything. I'm good. I went to Bosnia for 6 months. That was my combat deployment. I was like, okay, I'm good. I've done everything that I feel a patriot should do. And so I was happy with myself as a 5-year veteran of the Army.
That is a lot of ground to cover in 5 years.
I did quite a bit in 5 years. I did quite a bit more in the 15 years following, but 14 years following. Yeah. I didn't quite make it to retirement. But yeah, I did all that, and I was well on my way to making a decent life for myself as a civilian. I had my own place, like I said. I was getting ready to use my VA benefits to go to college and buy a house, working full time at a job that was advancing me very quickly and all that. And then blam. It's like, okay, well, I'll put all of that on hold and go do something else.
Well, thank you for your service, brother.
Well, thank you. Now let's, I know you've only got about 20 minutes yourself, so let's hear your story.
Well, I was a small boy on a taco farm when, wait, different story. Wrong stream. So what a lot of people, some people know, some people don't know, but I was married before. My 9-year-old is actually from my ex-girlfriend, ex-fiance, but I was married when 9/11 happened. And although I haven't talked to my ex-wife in a number of years, I was married when it happened. We had been attending a wedding. Well, 2 things. She had a Yale reunion because she was on the alumni board for Yale. So she and I met through a college conference thing. Of course, people know I went to Stanford and Oxford. She went to Yale. Anyway, so quite the Hispanic power couple at the time. But we had gone to her Yale reunion, which was reunion week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then that Friday, Saturday, we went to she was in a wedding for a friend somewhere in New York. I can't remember where. It was in the middle of nowhere at this estate. I'd never seen so many rich people with money or houses this big in my life. Like I thought Stanford University was pretty fancy pants and plush. Holy shit! I'm like, so this is the 9/11 weekend. Me not knowing any better what's about to happen. I'm sitting there like a Mexican kid out of East San Jose Water. You're looking around like, huh? So they have events here every weekend. They're like, and no, the estate has been in my family for 5 generations. Oh, so you guys have been renting it for 5 generations? I mean, just.
Now this is out in the country in New York, right?
Yeah, somewhere out in the middle and just fancy pants country. Who knows where? Somewhere I don't even remember where it was. I just remember it took us forever to drive there. Anyway, so then Saturday night, was it Saturday night or Sunday morning? Was it late Saturday? No, it had to been early Sunday morning. We got up and then we drove to my buddy's house. Buddy was going to let us use his apartment because we were flying out of JFK Monday morning. We had a Monday morning flight to fly to JFK at, I think the flight was at between 11 and 1, something like, I remember we had needed to be at the airport around 11, 12, 1, something like that. I can't remember that exactly, but I knew that we were leaving out of, and so we needed to be in Manhattan, or at least close to it, not in the middle of nowhere. So we got up super early Sunday, got to my buddy's place. He was partying all night. Who God knows what stripper he was at. Anyway, he left the keys to his apartment, which was in downtown Manhattan, which was near Wall Street. I mean, he was a Wall Street banker, foreign exchange currency trader. and he worked. Actually, I can't remember if he was in the North or South Tower, but one of those towers, one of the two towers. And but he had stayed the night to let me and my wife use his place. He left the keys, and so we stayed in his apartment, which was downtown. And so I can't remember how this, let me see if I can remember the sequence of events. So we got up to get ready. I packed all the I packed all the bags except for one last bag that I had that we both had our stuff in. And I went to go get ready. I remember she screamed. She came out of the shower in a towel. She screamed. And she says, "We're under attack." And this is the first plane hit, like right when the first replay hit. Which by the way, they thought it was still an accident.
I wonder how many people said that, because that's exactly the same words my grandfather said to me when he woke me up. We're under attack.
I mean, I looked at her. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The plane just ran into a building. Who knows why? It could be a guidance system issue. You know, it could be who knows." Da da da. I mean, I was saying all kinds of stuff. I'm like, you don't know what happened. She's like, no way. She's like, she's like, someone's using planes to attack us. Like, boom, like within 30 seconds of the videotape. And I'm like, it can't be. And I traveled a lot for a living at the time. At the time, I was like a black belt master. I'm still a master traveler. Like, I was a black belt traveler. and so I looked at this thing, and I'm like, and so then the second plane hit, and I'm like, yeah, we're under attack. This shit's real. And I instantly, all of a sudden, my tactical traveler mind, not my tactical military.
Yeah.
That's different military. I'm now a tactical guy with weapons and shit, but not back then. So my tactical travel mind starts racing. And I know we've got a flight between 11 and 1. I instantly know that they're going to ground the entire air fleet before they were talking. I just knew. I'm like, we've got to get out of here now. Because number one is that I don't know what planes are going to hit what buildings. We're downtown. We're literally like, when I said, I'm going to go downstairs, I'm going to find a cab, and I'm going to get a cab rolling. And I didn't have a plan yet, but that was my plan. So I took all the luggage downstairs. How close were we? I'm sure you'll ask that question in a minute. I'm going to say about 10 or 12 long blocks up one of the avenues.
Okay.
So we weren't like right there, but definitely to the point where you could see and smell everything that was happening and that's one thing, by the way, I'll never forget. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. I'll get into the sensory perceptions of being there. Because there were things that I saw, there were things that I smelled, and there were sounds that I heard that to this day still I've never seen a video about. Yeah, I don't know if they don't exist. I don't know if they're not suppressed, but I'll get to that in a minute. So anyway, so I go downstairs to look for a cab. I tell a guy, I said, I go downstairs to get a cab. I said, stay here, wait. I'm gonna go get the bags. When I came back down with the bags, he says, we've all been ordered to return to dispatch. So he left. So I'm downstairs with the bags. I go back upstairs to where she's at, where Eva's at, my wife at the time. And I go back upstairs. I said, are you ready? I said, we're going out. She said, no, we've got to see what's happening. I'm like, no, we are leaving now. And she says, well, how are we going to leave? I said, I'm guaranteed that. She said, we're going to go to the airport. And I'm like, that is the last place I'm going right now. And I said, I'm going to figure out how we're getting out the side. But if we have to walk over this bridge and leave all of our luggage behind, that's what we're going to do. As a man, I only had two purposes: save her life and get us home, which was Miami, Florida. Like that's. You know how they say, like, have you ever heard that, like, men have, like, this biological genetic?
It's fight or flight, and your fight was to save your wife and get out of town.
Yeah.
Flight would have been to leave your wife behind and take care of yourself. So you did the right thing. But that I totally understand. It was being a black belt traveler, you would have known not to go to the airport.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like, all of a sudden, I felt like my body was almost like I was playing my own video game of myself and moving myself around. Like, you know, when you play a video game and you're controlling your character, right?
Yeah.
I literally, like, a switch flipped in my head, and where I went into survival mode.
That's the alpha state.
Yeah, and I said, I'm going to take. I said, we're getting off this island, and we're getting off this island right now. And she's like, well, where are we going to go? I said, just don't worry about it. And she says, well, I'm like, don't think, do. Follow me. Let's go. So I took her outside. We left the keys for the guy. And then it dawned on me that my buddy worked at one of the fucking towers.
Oh,
Zach, like it dawned on me, like first I was protecting her, got us out, got to first floor. I'm like, holy shit. I started calling, and I've always been kind of fancy pants, so I actually had a cell phone back then. Okay, it was that big gray Motorola. I think it was that gray Motorola one. I think it was a flip phone, if I remember correctly. But like I was that guy who bought that $1,200 one at Radio Shack, the one that you carried around like a lunch pail. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, I actually had the money for that, and I was like the only one that had one of those back when the first cell phones came out. Anyways, so but I had a cell phone, and he was unreachable, and so I was worried. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. Fast forward just to find just the Zach story. So I ended up finding out what happened to Zach. It took 2 or 3 days because the communications were out in the Northeast. I mean, they were just completely out. You couldn't get calls in or out at all.
I believe that.
It wasn't until I got us out of the Northeastern region that I was able to make a collect call off of I-95 to my mom and let her know I was okay. The funny thing is, I didn't know funny side story. My mom didn't know I was even in New York, but when the buildings fell, she told my stepdad that we got to get a hold of Mijo Michael because I think he's in New York. And even though I hadn't told him I was in New York, like they had no way of knowing we were in New York. And my dad's like, no, he's fine. They're in Florida. What are you talking about? He's like, he travels a lot and he's in New York. I know he's in New York, and I don't know if he's okay or not. So by the time I did reach her, she was a wreck. She's like, oh my God, where are you? I'm like, I'm on the side of I-95. Did you get out of New York? And I was like, how did you know I was in New York? She said, you were, right? And I was like, yeah. I don't know, dude. That was another weird thing. Anyway, so we're downstairs. And I start calling the payphone. I start calling 1-800 numbers, local numbers. I basically fast forward things. It took me 2 hours. I got the last rental car on the island. But the guy, when I called, said, we've got 2 cars left. One of them's got a reservation. The other one doesn't. And it's first come, first serve. And I was like, where are you? And I used to be a triathlete. So at the time this happened in 2001, was about halfway through. I was a triathlete from about 1996 to 2010. And a long distance triathlete, like I could run 6.5 minute miles, shit like that,
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So I said, where are you? He's like, I'm at 34th and 5th. And and I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. And I freaking flew running. Like I ran, got the last car, went back, got the wife, got the luggage on the side of the road. And I was one of the last 6 or 7 vehicles off of the Washington Bridge before they shut that bridge down.
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, and so I'll just let me go back to the 3 things that I saw, that I heard, that I experienced, that I don't think I've never seen any video of the following. Number one is the smell. It was a smell of death. It was a smell of burning rubber, burning concrete. Burning steel. Like each of these things.
If you want to hold on just 1 second. Yeah. Dave G Sound, if you hit me up on Twitter or Mary, we can get you the link. You can come up and tell the story. My sister was supposed to be on the program telling about the 9/12 when she got deployed to the Pentagon for cleanup, but you lived actually in Arlington at the time, so I'd like to hear your story too. If you want to come on, you're welcome to. I'd like to hear that story. Sorry about that, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh no problem at all. No. You gotta us Mexicans, you gotta stop us. We'll talk for like 4 hours. But the smell, all of these things have unique smells, but when you put them together, it was like, I still know that smell to this day. And I said that a year ago. I think we live streamed. Did we live stream like 9 or 10 months ago? Yeah, in October last year we talked about this.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was October we talked about this last October because I was in Dallas. Or I don't know if I talked about. No, wait, I never talked about this with you. I think it was with on Canucks channel. Yeah, it was on Canucks. So maybe sorry, I thought it was you for a second, but no, it was Canucks.
Oh, no worries.
But I haven't talked about so last time I talked about this was about a year ago. But as I'm recounting this story now, I vividly can still smell that smell as if it were like here right now with me. Like it's ingrained in my skull. And it was awful. It's the smell of destruction. It's what it was. And I'm sure guys that have been combat deployed, that I've said the story to guys that have been combat deployed, and they've said that they know what I'm talking about, but no one else knows what I'm talking about, but they do.
Yeah, when they say, if you read a book and it's like a book where a house burns down or something, and the author says, "Oh, the smell of burnt pork was," it doesn't smell like burnt pork, guys. Stop saying that. If you're a writer and you've never smelled that smell, please stop saying burnt pork, because it doesn't smell like that.
No, not at all. It's completely different. It was, you know, it lingered with me for weeks and months. Like you ever gone to the gun range and you smell gunpowder for days or weeks after, you know, because
I love the smell of cordite in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Oh my God, lovely Sherry was there as well. I just saw that comment.
Oh wow.
I just saw that comment. I woke up smelling. Wow.
Yeah, I woke up hearing helicopters and sirens screeching. Mm-hmm. Living in New York City at the time was so scary.
The second thing,
I believe that.
The second thing I'll share is things that I saw that I've never seen video for. I saw jet fighters where I was at on the lower Manhattan. I saw jet fighters going through the avenues. Now I don't know if they're F-14s. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what kind of Fs they were because I don't know planes. But I saw them going overhead. You know, and that was freaky and weird and crazy. Now
it was just the 4 planes, right? And 3 of them actually hit their targets.
Right. No, I'm not talking about those. I meant jet fighters.
Right, the jet fighters. I'm sure that they were scrambled to shoot down any other planes that were. I heard this later on, of course. They were scrambled in order to shoot down anything else that was possibly aimed at something.
Yeah. And then the third thing I'll share is that now there is some video of this, but the sound of the people were making as they were running up the avenues and away from downtown. See, when the buildings fell, you know, there's so people, you know, there's just waves of people coming, and then you hear the crying and the screaming and, you know, people looking for people. It's oh man, you know, and to know, you know, and then the other thing too is knowing that I was going to be able to get off the island too, as this is happening, you know, as I'm trying, you know, you're trying to not get into the hysteria because I'm trying to save me and my wife and get us off the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Succumbing to the hysteria. You saw a lot of that on the newscasts as well. People just sitting on curbs covered in dust, crying their eyes out.
And so that was hard to reconcile because I'm looking around at people like move or, you know what I mean? Then you've got
something, right?
And then the sound of the first responders coming from every corner of your auditory, like it's 360 degrees first responder sirens, right? And they're all kinds of sirens. You know, most people are like, oh, it's just a siren. No, when you hear a cop car come in, there's a difference between an ambulance siren, a fire truck, a police vehicle, and they're all coming from different directions, and they're all coming at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they do have distinct sounds, but often in a large city, you just can't distinguish the sound because it doesn't matter. If it doesn't affect you, you don't care. But when you hear all 3 groups of people all rushing to the same place at the same time, it's like, oh, what the hell is going on now?
Right. So we got off the island, drove.
What it was like in the LA riots.
Yeah. Once I got across Washington Bridge, we drove nonstop all the way back home to Coral Gables, Florida. And I flew out about 2 or 3 months first Christmas. So this was September 11th. Yeah, I think it was after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, when I was on the West Coast. And I had a talk with my dad. I told him I wanted to sign up, even though I was older, you know, because I wasn't a spring chicken. I was already 30, 31, 32. So it wasn't really 21 years old. So I was 30. Yeah,
36 was the cutoff at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had actually already done some research. I went to I talked to the recruiter over at Moffett. I didn't want to do Air Force, but I talked to the recruiter over at Moffett Air Force Base, and I'm like, Dad, I got a lot of options. My skill set could be used. They're telling me da da da. He literally looked me in the eye. He says, I am not going to allow you to go. I'm like, you can't control whether I go or not. And he says, you are not going. He's like, you're the oldest son. You're not going. If you go, you break my heart. He's also Vietnam, three tours voluntary in Vietnam.
Voluntary. Wow.
Yeah, 3 voluntary tours in and he's just like, you're not going. He says, I will stop sleeping the minute you sign that paperwork, and I will not sleep. He's like, no, you're gonna kill your dad if you go. And so I'm just like, all right, fine. So what little thing I did is I went back to Moffett, and for the next 7-8 years, while I had an office in, until 2010. And then the economy turned, and I had to close it after the 2009 market crash. But for the next 9 years, I made a habit of taking care of servicemen who either were overseas or they're coming back, and they had tax problems, like they didn't file or they needed to claim benefits. So at my office over in Alum Rock at 1652 Alum Rock Avenue, so I had a stack of my cards at the. I dropped them off to the, and I got for my volunteer service records. I actually got presented a flag, honorary for being of service to servicemen. And a lot of these guys had real bad tax problems, or they came back and they couldn't fill out paperwork, so I would let them come into my office, and I would do their taxes, get them the refunds, help them if child support or custody paperwork if they had to deal with that. I did that every year for 8 years until
that is awesome.
Until
that is really
started
cool.
in 2000 and the end of 2002. And did it until 2000. Until 2010. 2010, I couldn't afford to keep the office open, so I had to close it. But that's what I did. And the local sergeant, him and one of the other guys, they were spreading the word about, hey, there's this guy that does this, and he can help you out. And I wouldn't charge anybody for anything, of course, And I got presented with a flag and a certificate thanking me for my volunteer efforts. I still have the flag. I don't have the certificate. I don't know what happened to that in one of the moves, but I still have the flag that they presented to me. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I was bartending at the VFW, some folks would come in, and I was like, "Are you a veteran?" Because veterans are allowed to come into any VFW and drink and hang out. They're just not allowed to be members unless they've had a combat deployment. Mm-hmm. And so I was bartending there one day, and a group of firefighters came in, and I said, "Are you guys veterans?" And they said, "No, we're just firefighters." I said, "Just firefighters? Get over here. Let me buy you a drink."
That's sweet.
They belted up to the bar. I was like, you know what? You guys served just as much as I served. Hell, you probably served in more dangerous situations than I have. That's always, when you're in it for the service, you're in it for selfless reasons for the most part. If you're in it for the right reasons. I mean, before that 2003 deployment to Iraq, there was several soldiers, privates, who kept saying, "I just joined for the college money. My recruiter lied to me." I said, "Dude, you joined after 9/11. What did you think was going to happen?"
Yep. So, I don't know. I just think that it was an awful event, but it brought our country together in a lot of ways. And
it did. And I don't like telling it this way, but I used to fly a flag in the back window of my truck. And on September 12th, I took it down. Not because I'm not a patriot, but because I believe that most people who were flying the flag were flying it for less patriotic reasons than I always flew mine. So,
what do you mean?
Well, I know it brought the country together, and people were flying the flag for a couple of weeks afterwards, and were going, "God bless the USA," and then they would let their flags get all tattered and torn and dirty, and they would just keep them up. I go, it's the sentiment that counts, I know, but
that drives me absolutely nuts. So there's a house down the street from where I live, and for 6-7 months, I watched this tattered flag hanging in this front house. And I told myself that if it did get changed by Christmas, that I was just going to order one and have it dropped off.
Yeah.
I mean, that just drives me absolutely nuts. Turns out, I was talking to one of the guys who's in the maintenance team, he maintenance facilities team, who manages our properties, and he and I just bumped into each other. And he says, "Hey, do you know who lives over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, they drive me nuts too." So what he did is he had them and the homeowners association. They came in and they replaced it.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah. So
there are some organizations like the VFW that I worked at. The flag was flown in Vietnam, and so it is old and it is worn and it is tattered, but it's well cared for and it's lit properly. But the flags that are hanging outside people's houses, the ones that are fluttering off the back of tailgates and things like that are getting all ripped up and torn up and still displayed. It's like, really, guy, you can go to Walmart and spend $5. Please do that and get a new flag. It's just, so I took mine down. I didn't want to be that guy, but I mean, mine was always cared for, but still, I took it down anyway.
You have Mexican Iron Man coming after you. I can tell that I don't strike fear in your heart, but hey.
You could try. You could try.
Oh.
Well, I know you need to get off to another show, so I'm going to play the next song in my playlist, and hopefully somebody can come up and keep me company. Otherwise, go on and have a great time.
Well, the lovely Sherry, she was in New York that day. You can send her, maybe, I don't know, she's down to come on.
Yeah, if she wants to come up, absolutely. I was still hoping Dave G Sound would come up. I haven't seen him in the studio yet, so we'll see what happens.
Get up here, Dave. All right, brother, love you so much, and thank you for your service. And on this day, I hope that we all remember the great contributions of people like you and many souls that have come and gone.
Yeah, before you leave, though, I'd like to take this time to let's do a moment of silence for those who have fallen at the towers, at the Pentagon, and since then. All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you being here and telling your story. I really do.
Thank you, my brother. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, hey. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Well, there you go, folks. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate that. We've had the moment of silence. If nobody else wants to come up and tell their story, that's fine. I was planning on having other guests, but they're busy right now, which is understandable. It happens. So no problem. But never forget. Changed all our lives, whether we know it or not, whether we can pinpoint one moment in our lives or not. It changed all our lives. And the world we live in today is not the same world we lived in September 10th of 2001. Just remember that. Special thanks again to Mary's Game Room, Mrs. Canuck, for helping me out with this stream today. I really appreciate it. She's been behind the scenes making sure everything runs smoothly. Thank you, Gap After Dark, for being here. The lovely Sherry, welcome. And Lady Mist, wonderful. Hephaestus, I've enjoyed reading your comments. That was wonderful. Thank you. Jedi Bill again, hello. Thank you again for supporting the channel. I did say Gap After Dark, I believe. And Dave G Sound, Parrot Head, you guys are all fantastic for being here. Thank you very much. And with that, give a sound and wonderful respect to those who have fallen that day. And I will see you all on the next Patriot stream, which will be November 11th. I think you can imagine what that day is called. At least I hope you can, because I know what it is.